kicking it off with Queen Bee, or Hive Queen, either works. Queen Bee was one of the 20. She was abducted by Brainiac and mutated, made into a powerful telepath with an extreme devotion to Brainiac. She thought she was his daughter. He turned out to be horrible, shocking, I know. He retreated eventually and just left the 20 mutated devoted people to perish. Some did, but most made it out alive, including, of course, the it girl Queen Bee. She came to Earth to prepare for his return in quite an interesting and modern way, using the Holistic Integration for Viral Equality social media company as a front. She would kidnap people that had psychic powers and then harvest their powers, so when the time came, the entire Earth could be taken over mentally. Some notable Queen Bee battles were against the Teen Titans, Red Hood, and Wonder Woman. She fights using her telepathic abilities, but has many other tricks up her sleeve, including flight, which makes sense if she's a bee, energy projection, intelligence, telekinesis, and casting illusions. She is also capable of regeneration. There are a few different people who have taken on the name Queen Bee. This one is from Prime Earth. She first appeared in Superman Volume 3, 21, and has had about 12 appearances total. I don't know why I'm including this villain here because his name is a mouthful, but he's funny and cool, so here's Onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia is the type of person to only target and take out a specific type of human. Onomatopoeia's chosen genre of human is non-powered heroes. He calls himself Onomatopoeia because he imitates every sound he hears. Something creaks, he will make a creaking sound. I like to imagine that Onomatopoeia has a human voice, and when he is making the sound, it isn't a perfect replica, it just sounds like a man doing a poor imitation of a creaking door. But probably his suit is tricked out and has some sort of cool feature that makes him parrot things well. Onomatopoeia wears all black, which is good. If he is going to announce himself using his voice whenever he hears a weird noise, the least he could do is be hard to see. Onomatopoeia has been arrested quite a few times and has faced off against the Teen Titans and Robin. In total, he has about 15 appearances. Crystal Frost went from one cool name to another when she became Killer Frost. Killer Frost was a villain to Firestorm. When she was Crystal, she was a university student who fell in love with her teacher. Her teacher did the right thing and refused her romantic advances, but that hurt her feelings a lot, and she held a grudge like she was born to do so. Post-college, Crystal was part of a scientific project in the Arctic that went super wrong. Crystal accidentally got trapped in a thermofrost chamber. Her time in there made her into a colder version of herself, a killer version of herself. She can now project powerful blasts of freezing cold and generate cold from her body. Unlucky for Firestorm, heat does little to hurt her, it actually makes her stronger. She has displayed the ability to freeze water droplets in the air. This might cause an opponent to freeze in place or trap someone with ice. She can create ice daggers and create such a cold environment and impede someone's ability to think. I don't think you will believe her weakness though. It's cold. If she gets too cold, she will go into a coma. She will basically hibernate. Remember how I said she'd held a grudge against that one prof that didn't like her back? Well, her first order of business once turning into a supervillain was to attack him. Luckily by that time, he was already part of the hero Firestorm. This Crystal Frost exists from 1950 to 2011 and she had about 19 appearances. I would join this villain squad purely because of their name and then regret it later. They are the Snake Gang. Each member is based on, you guessed it, a type of snake. So we have Cottonmouth, Copperhead, Asp, and Lady Viper. Lady Viper is kind of like the team's leader, but they take orders from Oracle. The Snake Gang, they fight Batgirl and the Birds of Prey. That is also the name of the comics, Batgirl and the Birds of Prey. The villains have snake-esque powers to go with their names. Cottonmouth elongates in battle and grows fangs, similar to the snake he's based on. His mouth goes white and presumably is filled with venom. Copperhead is very strong and tries to get his arms around his victims to constrict airflow. He also likely has a venomous bite. Asp is kind of like the guy in the chair for the group who is also in the field. He's the one that stays in contact with Oracle and calls for backup when the gang needs it. Lady Viper has the ability to change her legs into a snake tail. When she does so, she can see in the dark. When she is in this half-snake state, she hates bright light. She has claws, fangs, and an attitude. Copperhead has appeared the most out of the four with 31 appearances. Asp and Lady Viper are tied with 5, and Cottonmouth died in issue 3 of the comic, so he only had 2.
Number 10. The Actor. Now, I've heard of method actors, but this definitely takes the meaning to a whole other level. An ace infiltrator whose real identity is unknown that worked for the Russians back when they were an evil empire. Like Spider-Man's nemesis the Chameleon, the actor can perfectly impersonate anyone, and he was quite successful at stealing state secrets until he ran up against Tony Stark. The actor traveled to the United States and, disguised as Stark, easily entered Stark Industries, where he succeeded in not only obtaining some important blueprints, but also discovered that Tony Stark himself was Iron Man. The actor left feeling satisfied with his work and left cleanup duty to his agents. However, Tony was able to overcome them very easily and ended up traveling to the USSR to pose as the actor to foil their evil plans. And talk about a role reversal, am I right? When the real actor returned to his employer, the Red Barbarian, he was shot right as he came because he was deemed a traitor. This didn't actually kill him though, because he later resurfaced to work for the Red Barbarian to once again take down Tony Stark. Why not check him out for yourself in his first appearance in 1963's Tales of Suspense number 42. Number 9. The Melter. Bruno Horgan was once an American industrialist specializing in weapons for the US military until a government inspection revealed he was using shoddy materials, and you can probably guess why that's not really good. Tony Stark scooped up his defense contracts because, you know, his weapons actually worked, and a bankrupt Horgan decided the only rational thing to do was to blame Tony for sabotaging his work and ruining his life. Luckily for him, and unlucky for literally everyone else, he found himself among his ruined company's assets a weapon prototype that generated a beam capable of melting iron on contact, and this began his evil reign as the Melter. Tony was able to defeat this villain pretty easily. However, he was still deemed enough of a threat to create a new suit made out of aluminum, and good thing he did, because in his second encounter with the Melter, that completely saved him. Skip ahead a little bit and we see the Melter return with a new version of his melting ray and team up with Whiplash and the Blizzard to take down Tony Stark under the orders of Justin Hammer. Tony was able to overcome all three of the villains alongside Cave, and Horgan was sent to Rikers Island, where he met a nuclear physicist that helped him further augment his equipment so that it would work against Iron Man's aluminum armor. Fast forward just a little bit more and we see the Melter reach the end of his journey at the hands of Scourge, who was posing as his assistant. Take a look at this character story for yourself, starting with 1963's Tales of Suspense number 47. Number 8. Gargantus. Before Iron Man found his groove fighting industrial spies and the occasional world conqueror, he was stuck duking it out with alien robots like Gargantus. Created by an unknown and unnamed alien race that had been scouting the Earth for the past 80,000 years, Gargantus was built in the image of a Neanderthal because that was the only species that the aliens had encountered. It first arrived in the town of Granville and used its hypnotizing eyes to conquer the townspeople, but the aliens' plans were quickly foiled by Iron Man, who was alerted by the invasion because one of the young women trapped by Gargantus didn't show up for their date, and nobody stands up Tony Stark, so he knew something was up. After a little back and forth with the robot, Tony figured out that Gargantus was actually a robot and decided to surround it with powerful magnets that tore it apart completely because, you know, magnets. After the aliens realize that maybe the Earth's defenses are too good, they decide to fly away, and we don't hear about them again until 1999's Captain America, Sentinel of Liberty Volume 1 number 5. Fun fact, Gargantus is technically the first villain Iron Man ever faced, so why not check it out in its first appearance all the way back in 1963's Tales of Suspense number 40, and let me know what you think of this caveman robot in the comments below. Number 7. Termite. I'm sure we all know the classic way that most people gain their powers in comics. You know, an accident happens and instead of dying, they gain abilities. Pretty standard, right? Well, I think Marvel was a little bit tired of that because Neil Donaldson was just born with his ability to disintegrate whatever he touches. After discovering his powers, he was hired by Obadiah Stane to eliminate the competition. However, James Rhodes, the acting Iron Man at the time, quickly got word of this and set out to take the Termite down. During his third fight with the villain, the first two ending with the Termite escaping, Rhodes was seemingly evenly matched with him until Tony Stark showed up with the mutant power neutralizer and shot the Termite with it, removing his powers completely, allowing him to be arrested and taken to jail. Word of this got back to Stane and he hired the Enforcer to take him out. However, the Enforcer was taken out first by the Scourge of the Underworld, so basically the Termite was saved completely by accident. The Termite was later seen sulking in jail, and that's really the last we've seen of him. Check out this villain for yourself in his first appearance all the way back in 1984's Iron Man number 189. Number 6. Vibro. Alton Vibro was your average seismologist until he fell into the San Andreas Fault while testing an experimental machine, and of course he ends up with super vibrating powers because this is the Marvel Universe, and like I said a little bit ago, if you have an accident in the Marvel Universe, then you're probably going to end up with some sick powers. These powers allowed Alton to generate high-level seismic vibrations and fire them from his hands, causing shockwaves, opening chasms, and generating earthquakes. Thinking his employer Frankenfortney was to blame for his accident, he sought revenge on him and thus began his villain career as Vibro. After two battles with James Rhodes, the acting Iron Man at the time, Vibro was eventually taken down with the help of Tony Stark in the Mark I Iron Man armor. Vibro hasn't only been a problem for Iron Man though, and he has also gone up against the Falcon, Nomad, S.H.I.E.L.D., the Avengers West Coast, and even Wolverine. We later see him team up with the Mandarin alongside a bunch of other Avengers to once again try and take down the Armored Avenger. Making his first appearance all the way back in 1984's Iron Man number 186, why not give this villain story a read for yourself? Number 5, Doctor Strange. Now, I know what you're thinking, and no, I'm not talking about Stephen Strange, the Sorcerer Supreme and Master of the Mystic Arts. I'm talking about Carlos Strange, who made his first and last appearance all the way back in 1963's Tales of Suspense number 41. Carlos Strange was just your typical mad scientist, creating and concocting all manners of weaponry in his mountain hideout when a lightning bolt struck him, increasing the electrical energy inside his brain, making him smarter and even madder than before. 6 months after the whole lightning incident, Strange built an ultra-frequency transmitter from radio and television parts and used it to take mental control of Iron Man, forcing him to free him from his prison so he can enact his plan to take over the world and just give it to his daughter. Threatening to destroy the entire planet in 24 hours unless every nation surrenders to him, he launched a powerful bomb into the atmosphere to demonstrate just how serious he was. Iron Man quickly found his way to Strange's new hideout in the Atlantic and destroyed his main power source, effectively ruining his plan. With no other option, Strange withdrew and escaped custody, and we're honestly not too sure what he's cooking up now. Check out his story for yourself and let me know what you think of his character in the comments below. Number 4, the Chessman. Like so many criminal masterminds out there, Obadiah Stane was a bit too obsessed with the whole chess as a metaphor for controlling lives thing. So much so that he hired assassins who literally dressed themselves as chess pieces, you know, like pawns, bishops, knights, and rooks, with him acting as their king. The knight got a flying robot horse, the rook used a castle full of death traps, and the bishop, well, now that I think about it, he didn't do a whole lot. He was really only able to manipulate his opponent's actions. One by one, the chessmen went up against Iron Man, with none of them actually succeeding in taking him down. However, that didn't seem to be Stane's plan. The string of encounters and events actually led to Tony's addiction to alcohol to worsen, and this allowed him to buy Stark Industries and push Tony out of the Iron Man mantle for a while. Tony eventually got his act together and went up against the chess-themed team once more and emerged victorious, with Stane taking his own life with a repulsor blast. Check out these villainous pawns for yourself, starting with their first appearance in 1982's Iron Man number 163. Number 3, Mr. Doll. Now I know what you're thinking, and no, his first name wasn't Ken, that would just be way too good of a joke. Nathan Dawley was a pretty average dealer in curios and art objects until he came across an extraordinary doll during his time in Africa. He discovered that he could reshape this doll to resemble whomever he wanted, and that he could cause that person to feel immense pain by manipulating the doll's features. He decided the best way to use his new voodoo doll was to coerce rich business people into legally signing over control of their business to him, which worked pretty great for him until he decided to go after Tony Stark. Tony found it tough to fight against this villain because initially he was unable to withstand the pain caused by the doll. So in true Tony Stark fashion, he built a suit just for the occasion. Now able to withstand the power, Tony used a force beam to change the doll's likeness into that of Mr. Doll's, and the immense pain this caused Mr. Doll caused him to pass out, allowing for his capture and arrest. Fast forward a bit and we see Mr. Doll once again, however this time his consciousness is trapped and split between two mannequins, Jake and William, aka the Brothers Grimm. This didn't last for too long though, because he was eventually beaten by Spider-Woman and his consciousness dispersed for good. Take a look at the voodoo doll wielding Mr. Doll for yourself in his first appearance in 1963's Tales of Suspense number 48. Number 2, the Unicorn. Milos Masaryk was a Soviet intelligence agent assigned to security detail at the laboratory of an inventor who was developing advanced weaponry. One of the inventor's projects was a helmet that could discharge destructive energy blasts from something called the Power Horn, and Milos came into possession of this helmet after his inventor hightailed it to the US, thus starting his mission as the Unicorn of avenging the disgrace caused by the inventor's defection. His first encounter with Iron Man really isn't much to write home about since Tony let the villain walk away scot-free. However, several months later, after a not so healthy dose of brainwashing and augmentation, Milos returned to the US with the goal of doing whatever it takes to reverse an unfortunate side effect of his treatment. However, Iron Man was able to thwart his plans once again. The Unicorn teamed up with the Red Ghost, the Mandarin, and even Titanium Man, all of them promising to find a cure for him if he defeated Iron Man. However, obviously none of them were actually going to follow through with that. Flash forward a bit and we see the Unicorn once again make his way to the US to bring down Stark Tower alongside Spymaster and some other baddies. This was a bit of a weird time for Iron Man and the Unicorn because near the end of this arc, the two actually ended up teaming up to take down Captain Atlas. However, after they were done, they went back to being not so friendly with each other. Take a look at this magically named villain for yourself, starting with their first appearance all the way back in 1964's Tales of Suspense number 56. Number 1, the Blood Brothers. Like so many great Marvel heroes before him, there was a brief time when Iron Man was flying around having cosmic adventures with space aliens. When Thanos first appeared in the Iron Man comics, we were introduced to some of his henchmen as well, two of them being the Blood Brothers, Guri and Rahas blood. The alien siblings acted as Thanos' guardians of his Earth base. However, they were easily defeated by the Thing and Iron Man, and this just disgusted Thanos to the core, so he sent them away for a while to an unknown location. Years later, they made it back to Earth to try and get revenge on Iron Man, but they were defeated once again and ended up locked in Rikers Island. Fast forward a little bit and we see Rahas die and Guri go on solo, eventually becoming a part of the Hood's criminal army. Guri later had his cosmic potential unleashed, and this gave him a crazy power-up, and he became one of these Slaughter Lords under the name Brother Blood. Now it's not really said when, but at some point Rahas came back to life and the Blood Brothers reunited once again and joined a new incarnation of the Lethal Legion, as a part of a contest that was assembled by the Grand Master. All of these fights around the world were thwarted by the Avengers though, including the Blood Brothers fight in Rome, and the Lethal Legion regrouped, escaped to nowhere, and decided to stay together as a team just to see what they could accomplish together. Check out this villainous brotherly bond for yourself, starting with 1973's Iron Man number 55, and try to name a better duo in the comments. Oh wait.
Number 10. Father. Father was the only name we had for one of the scientists behind the mad science secret robotics project known as Project Descendant. Father, Mother, and Brother were the code names for the scientists behind the project, which ended up creating a race of synthetic beings deemed as hybrid. Due to the three team leaders bickering, the beings they created ended up being released out into the world. Later, the Father would attempt to lure the descendants of these beings back and would also go on to work on expanding the Deathlock project, aiming ambitiously to connect all the Deathlock versions of superhumans, joining them together to build a better world. It was during this time that he crossed paths with the very secretive X-Force, which at the time was led by Wolverine, who had refused Cyclops' orders to disband the team, keeping it going in secret. Number 9. Brothers of the New World. Wolverine ended up fighting and taking out pretty much all of this group because they kidnapped and killed his friend Lucy, who tried to escape them. They were a cult whose leader, Cry, kept a harem of women at their base. Wolverine set about attacking the cult and killing all of its members right around the time one of the women attempted to escape, who was actually a government agent who had been investigating the cult before being taken herself and added to their numbers of imprisoned women. This group of villains made an appearance during the first story arc of the 2003 Wolverine series entitled Brotherhood. Oh, also they were in part created by Greg Rucka, fun fact. Number 8. LCD. LCD is one of Donald Pierce's creations. She is an android who resembles a little girl and was created to kill Wolverine by self-detonating. However, she did not herself want to die, as she also was a smart android who ended up valuing her life. In the end, she reprogrammed the android doppelganger of Wolverine known as Albert, built to lure the real Wolverine into her trap, and instead would become Wolverine's ally. Number 7. Lazier. Lazier, or Azrael as he is also known, claims to be another form of death, one that we've seen Wolverine face before, and although we don't always see it, Lazier is an angel of death that Wolverine in theory is forced to face every time he has a near-death experience. Lazier battles for Logan's life, but Wolverine manages to fight him back each time, prevailing and ensuring his life belongs to him only. However, should Wolverine fail to defeat Azrael, the being would then claim his life and he would die. Apparently. Number 6. Tiger Shark. One of the first time these two ever crossed paths, it was one of the most random fights in comics. Wolverine and Tiger Shark originally started fighting because La Bandera, a mutant with emotion, manipulation, and energy manipulation abilities, who mainly uses her powers to make people feel more patriotic and empathic, was fighting Tiger Shark. Wolverine stumbled upon their fight and felt attracted to La Bandera and compelled to help her, mainly due to her mutant ability, obviously. Together the two made quick work of Tiger Shark, and then ran away together, because that's how that goes. Number 5. Bloodscream. Bloodscream would end up partnering with Wolverine's other lesser-known nemesis that we talked about on the part 1 of this list, Roughhouse. While many associate these two as being partners in crime, this isn't the only Wolverine villain that Bloodscream has teamed up with in the past. He has also teamed up with Albert and LCD as well, and in the Old Man Logan universe partnered up with both Kraven and Roughhouse in an attempt to help Kraven capture Old Man Logan. Number 4. Nuke. Many people forget about Nuke, but he is a lesser known villain in the comics who was actually created by Wolverine during his time as a Weapon X operative. He ended up securing Nuke when he was just a child for Project Homegrown. Weapon Plus, with Wolverine's help, would later drive him insane and turn him into a brainwashed cyborg to be used as a weapon. Even years later, these two still come to blows. During Death of Wolverine, Nuke would accept a contract to capture Wolverine and bring him into Viper alive. This would lead to an epic fight between the two where Wolverine would only end up winning by smashing his own skull repeatedly into nukes until he was unable to fight back. Is this the most metal way that a fight has been won in comics? Let me know in the comments. Most metal fights, that's a list we need to do. Number 3. Romulus. Does everyone remember Romulus? One of the most weirdly epic and yet short-lived villains of almost all time in Wolverine's rogue history. He had this huge buildup, and we went on to find out that he was an ancient villain from prehistoric times, only to find out that this was all a lie and apparently a ruse to distract Wolverine. He was, however, the villain responsible for cutting Daken out of his dead mother, Itsu's womb, and for training him and turning him into a killing machine. He manipulated Daken from day one, helping to turn him against his father, and was the one responsible for helping him to bond the melted down Muramasa blade to Daken's claws. Or at least helped him get the idea. Because, you know, the Tinkerer obviously did that in actuality. I don't even know if Romulus knows how to melt metal. Probably. Number 2. Gorgon. If you don't know the Gorgon and this pretty awesome story featuring him, you should. During the third Wolverine series from 2003, Wolverine ends up getting entangled with the Gorgon when he is attempting to locate Ichiro, the missing son of one of his dead fiance's cousins, who has been kidnapped. I say one of his dead fiancés because I feel like Wolverine's got a few of those. Gorgon is a telepathic mutant who, as his name implies, can turn those who make direct eye contact with him into stone. Gorgon ends up capturing Wolverine and giving him over to the Hand, who brainwashed him and turned him into their own agent. However, Wolverine would later break free of their control and would even go on to kill Gorgon, using his own claws to reflect Gorgon's deadly gaze back at him, transforming Gorgon into stone before shattering him. But don't worry, Gorgon would be resurrected later on and return. Gotta love those old mythology references. Comics taking old stories and making them new again, and also never letting people die. Number 1. Ogun. Ogun was once Wolverine's martial arts mentor and a powerful sorcerer and telepath, but later became Logan's enemy after being spurned by Wolverine, joining the Yakuza, and going on to kidnap, train, and brainwash Kitty Pryde during the Kitty Pryde and Wolverine story. Ogun even managed to turn Kitty Pryde against Logan, sending her to attack him when Wolverine had come to rescue her. Fortunately, Wolverine was able to break Ogun's control over Kitty. In the end, Kitty fought Ogun but was unable to defeat her former master. However, Wolverine was able to do so. After being beaten but spared by Wolverine, Ogun attacked Kitty once more and was killed by Wolverine as a result. Of course, this is comics, so this wouldn't be the last we'd see of Ogun by a long shot. Number 10. The Flower Cartel. This one might be lesser known as they are relatively new. Not just an enemy to Wolverine either, but an enemy to likely all of mutant kind and the mutant nation of Krakoa. The Flower Cartel are a group responsible for smuggling the Krakoan miracle flowers, which mutants use to create medicinal drugs for the world in exchange for the global acknowledgement, rights, and respect of their mutant nation. They don't just steal these flowers, but have been using them to create recreational, potent, hallucinogenic drugs. The drugs they've created are so powerful that they often cause the death of users, and may even be affiliated with mind control or possession of those exposed to the drug. We're not really sure yet. In Wolverine's newest series, he teams up with CIA agent Jeff Bannister to try and find out who exactly is behind the Flower Cartel's criminal activities. Number 9. Hobgoblin. I think we all know Hobgoblin fairly well, if you're a Spider-Man fan that is, but did you know that he also tussled with Wolverine and the X-Men? This altercation went down in the Spider-Man animated series from the 90s, where actually Mark Hamill himself voiced Hobgoblin. We see Wolverine, the X-Men, and Spider-Man forced to deal with Hobgoblin in the season 2 episode titled Mutants Revenge, which is a crossover episode with the 90s X-Men animated series. Yay, I love crossovers. After Beast is kidnapped, the X-Men go out looking for him, which leads them to team up with Spider-Man, who is also looking for Hank. But Wolverine doesn't like Spider-Man, and while these two fight one another, Hobgoblin also sees this as a unique opportunity to attack all of the above parties, causing grief for Wolverine while he attempts to rescue Beast from Dr. Herbert Landon, who also is another random, lesser known enemy of Wolverine's in that episode anyways. Number 8. The Savage Land Mutates. When it comes to other mutant and even mutate groups outside of the X-Men, people are not always as knowledgeable. If you are just discovering mutant kind now, you may not know many other mutant groups outside of the X-Men, and there's sometimes a villainous counterpart, often led by Magneto, the Brotherhood of Mutants, or the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. But there are actually a lot more groups than just these two. There are the more Morlocks, who often live in the sewers. And there are the Savage Land Mutates, who generally work with Sauron and are, you guessed it, from the Savage Lands. Mutates are like mutants, but the difference is generally that they weren't born with natural abilities which later activated, or natural mutations, but instead they evolved to become mutated, gaining powers or a physical mutation. The Savage Land Mutates are occasionally enemies of the X-Men and by extension Wolverine, who is a member of the heroic mutant team. They even pop up in the 1988 run of Wolverine in issue 69, where Wolverine knocks a lot of them down in order to get to Sauron. Number 7. The Collector. While some may now be more familiar with the character of the Collector himself, thanks to the Guardians of the Galaxy Marvel Cinematic Universe films, fans may not know that he and Wolverine actually had some pretty big beef. What happened between these two? Well, Wolverine basically freed thousands of people from a planet where the Collector had them imprisoned. You see, these people were the survivors of planets that Galactus had destroyed, whom the Collector had, well, collected. But you know, to these people, they were being held against their will, as prisoners, on a shielded planet. A character named Arya, who kind of looks like a space elf, reaches out to Wolverine, seeking his help to free these people, and he answers her plea, getting into a direct conflict with the Collector later on in this story arc known as The Great Escape, part of the 1988 Wolverine series. Basically, if you want lots of random stories, you need to read the 1988 Wolverine series. Number 6. The Iron Monk. The Iron Monk appears to be a villain sent after Wolverine by the Hand while Logan is being held in prison in issue 108 of the Wolverine series that started in 1988. He proves to be a formidable foe and gives Wolverine a pretty good fight for a few pages. I will say I did enjoy it. The Iron Monk, you see, cannot be defeated by any mortal weapon nor any mortal hand. In the end, Wolverine ends up using the Honor Sword bestowed to him by the Silver Samurai. The Honor Sword was forged out of a meteorite by a demon and seems to do the trick, causing the Iron Monk to be reduced to a wisp of pink smoke and a robe. Number 5. Citadel. Despite the fact that Wolverine did later try to help Citadel and likely never truly saw him as an enemy, Citadel resented both Wolverine and Alpha Flight after they stopped him from achieving his goal. Citadel was one of the antagonists in issue 5 of Wolverine First Class, where Citadel was also known then as Weapon Y. Wolverine suspected he was also made by the same people who had put adamantium inside of him, as Citadel had adamantium skin, or an adamantium exoskeleton externally, instead of internally. Citadel was a soldier who was injured in action and ended up being experimented on instead of being properly treated. He wanted the government to be held accountable, and was holding government officials hostage in Quebec, Canada. Wolverine's mission was to deal with the situation, extract the superhuman threat, and secure the hostages. He didn't know that Citadel himself was also a potential victim until it was too late, and the government stepped in to cart Citadel off without Wolverine being able to do or say much about it. Number 4. Abdul Alhazarad. Fun fact, did you know that Abdul Alhazarad in H.P. Lovecraft lore is the character credited with the creation of the Necronomicon? Yeah, he is, and as such, he is also acknowledged as being its creator in the Marvel Universe as well. He and Wolverine came to blows in Madripoor when Abdul was trying to take over Tiger's crime syndicate. Abdul attempted to attack Wolverine with a demon, but in the end, Wolverine survived, and Abdul ended up trapped in the same demonic realm his demon pals had come from. Sucks to suck, I guess. Number 3. Damage. For those who are unfamiliar with Damage, he's basically Marvel's version of the Terminator. There's a lot of parallels there anyways. He was originally the human Jamie Ortiz. The Kingpin turned him into a cybernetic being after Damage was brought to the brink of death by Punisher. Kingpin later gave Damage cosmetic surgery to make him look identical to the Punisher as well, and used him against Frank Castle, attempting to break Castle and ruin the Punisher's name by having Damage kill a bunch of innocent people. Wolverine and Damage both ripped one another apart in a fight, and when Punisher finally showed up, he finished Damage off by setting him on fire. Number 2. Geist. Nikolaus Geist was a mad scientist from Germany working on the side of the Axis during World War II. He was working to create a new type of super soldier for Germany, similar to the United States super soldier Captain America, aka Steve Rogers. Roughhouse was his main test subject, and in the end, Wolverine was the one to free Roughhouse and put a stop to Geist. Geist was also a cyborg, but Wolverine cut off his metal shell in an attempt to kill him. It was later revealed that while he was suspected dead and was incapacitated after this fight, he did however manage to survive. However, soon after, another mutant, Magneto, did kill him, so he dead. Number 1. Roughhouse. Going back back again to the days of battle in Madripoor for who would get to be the king or queen of crime, and in effect rule Madripoor, Wolverine found himself allied with Yasan Hoan, aka Tiger. It was also during this time that he first fought with Roughhouse, who made his first appearance in issue 4 of Wolverine's series from 1988. Roughhouse was allied with General Koi, and got his superpowers from either his relation to the mythical race of Asgardians, or from being a mutant, or maybe a bit of both. It's a little foggy. Though they are enemies and remained enemies thereafter, Wolverine did still save Roughhouse from Geist, because experimenting on people in Logan's book is just plain wrong. And I think in everyone's book, let's not experiment on people. Can we all agree on that?
Askana is an alien shapeshifter that primarily faces off against Hawkman. She debuted in Hawkman 2. She was an agent for Dr. Hogarth Kane. The form she usually appears in is like a human woman. For her big fight with Hawkman above the streets of New York though, she is stuck in this like green lizard looking form, but half her face is still human. In this form she is very strong, punching through walls. She also has sharp claws. She is a Hawkman villain, but a bit misunderstood. The reason she fought Hawkman in the sky was because she had to make sure he was a good fighter. He was. The reason she is on Earth is because she was wrongfully accused of committing crimes on her home planet and had no choice but to escape. Aksana has only appeared in the Savage Hawkman comics so far and has about 5 appearances to her name. Someone who is the same but different. We have Spinebender. He is actually a crime committer. He steals. He can get away with his crimes because he is also a shapeshifter. Spinebender has fought various members of the Bat family. He was first up against Batgirl when he stole a bunch of microchips. The chips were important because they had power that rivaled the chips powering the Batsuits from Q-Core. He made it all the way to Miami before he was found out by Batgirl and Nightwing. He held a grudge against Nightwing for that and later went looking for him to try and eliminate him. In the scuffle between those two, Spinebender broke a street light that electrocuted him to the point where he should have died, but he didn't die. Spinebender is still out there and currently he has 3 appearances to his name. Animal Man's comics are weird enough, but issue 28 actually hurt my eyes to read. So the next 2 obscure villains are Front Page and Notional Man. Animal Man 28 is the first and last appearance for Front Page. He either was born with or grew into looking like the front page of a newspaper. He looks like if a mummy was wrapped in newspaper headlines instead of bandages. He holds his own in hand-to-hand combat and his weapon of choice appears to be a rolled up newspaper, but his main power is the news headlines on him. They mess with his opponents psychologically. Depending on who he is fighting, he is covered in disturbing headlines about that person. Usually it's covering their death. Seeing the disturbing headlines about himself activated Animal Man's animal instincts and he smacked Front Page with his own paper, and now the only headlines Front Page shows are about his own death. As for Notional Man, he made it to 2 appearances. He dressed in all white and is shown to have a heightened sense of smell, like he can smell feelings like guilt and grief and love. He carries around lots of surgical equipment that he uses to fight, his forceps being his favorite tool. Notional Man dresses in a very fashionable suit and I don't know why. His origin was that he was a phantom pregnancy. When someone wants a child so bad, they imagine they are pregnant when they really aren't. So he is essentially a phantom person. Animal Man also brutally takes him out and his body turns into sludge, I think. That's the end of it. Shazam and Cyborg had to work together to subdue Zookeeper and his Beast Force. Zookeeper is relatively new, debuting in 2016. He appears to have mechanical body parts and excellent fighting skills. He is the leader of a group of animal men. He calls them Beast Force. Some of the animals on his team are a pit bull, warthog, cheetah, bear, gorilla, crocodile, and tiger. He literally has a whole zoo of them. Any animal you've seen in a zoo, just assume they are on Beast Force. The animals all have armor and big guns, plus all the weapons their natural biology affords them, like claws and fangs or tusks. We don't see much of the battle with the animals, but we do get to see the final bit. Cyborg sends out a powerful blast, and Shazam is pictured perched on a pile of the Animal Men things at the end. Zookeeper is arrested, and currently this is his only appearance. Plastic Man's comics give us the gift of some of the most ridiculous ridiculous villains, and I could not be more grateful. Today, we are looking at Carrot Man. Carrot Man was in a live studio audience for the game show Let's Make a Steal. The audience for that show, usually they dress in fun costumes, so Carrot Man chose to wear a carrot costume that day. He started out as just a regular guy. The show's prize for the moment was a blender, and the person that won it was so excited she won that blender that she, for some reason, threw the blender into the audience. It smacked Carrot Man right in the head. It hit him so hard it awakened his inner evil, and that was that. He now had no choice but to commit a crime. Also, he passed out and no one cared. No one called an ambulance, so I don't really blame him for the inner darkness awakening. Carrot Man is new at being a criminal, so he announced on camera the crime he would commit and challenged Plastic Man to stop him. We know probably how the crime went. He went to jail. Carrot Man had a happy ending though. After escaping from jail, he hit his head again and went back to his old personality.
Number 10, Sportsmaster. Starting off with a pretty vanilla villain, Lawrence Crusher Croc was a very competitive sportsman who excelled at many sports, but he never played fair. Doing anything possible to win, he was eventually banned from playing any sport at a professional level, which for some reason led him to a life of crime. I don't know why. After a run-in with the Green Lantern, he supposedly dies, but it's revealed that he actually just faked his death, and that's when he became the Sportsmaster. After little success as a solo villain, Croc decided to join the Injustice Society, but after a series of crimes, he ends up in jail for a while. After serving his time, he teamed up with the Huntress and actually ended up marrying her, has a daughter, and then the three of them committed crimes together as one big happy crime family. Croc does eventually lose his life at the hands of the Human Flame following the events of Final Crisis though. With basically no superpowers other than being pretty good at sports, it's no wonder this villain has been forgotten in time. Check him out in his first appearance, All-American Comics number 85. Number 9, The Eraser. Probably the villain with the most interesting attire on this list today, Leonard Fiasco actually went to high school alongside Bruce Wayne. Due to his low grades, he actually ended up dropping out of school and turned to a life of crime as the villain Eraser. He apparently chose that name as a reminder of his constant failures during his school life, and also because he wanted to provide a special service to the criminals of Gotham City. Donning an eraser helmet that looks exactly like the top of a pencil, and alongside his signature yellow suit, he has been seen throughout the years erasing every trace of evidence left at any crime scene, making it impossible for the police to find any clues, and he does such a good job of it that he manages to stump Batman and Robin from time to time. He is eventually caught by the dynamic duo though after they infiltrate his hideout, and not much has been seen of him since. If you're interested in his story, check him out in his first appearance in 1966, Batman number 188. Number 8, Condiment King. Now with a name like Mitchell Mayo, it makes sense that this villain's name would be the Condiment King. Once an inmate of Arkham Asylum, Mayo somehow managed to break out but was immediately subdued by Batman and Catwoman. His dream was to one day open a restaurant on Coney Island, and he actually does achieve that, stating he's turned legit and wants nothing more than to leave his life of crime behind. However, he does later don his suit once more and does his best to wreak havoc against Batman and Nightwing. Possessing no powers whatsoever, Mayo relies heavily on his gadgets, the most prominent being his condiment guns. These guns shoot a variety of sauces including ketchup, barbecue sauce, mustard, and more. However, it's kind of useless because it doesn't shoot anything at a high enough pressure to be lethal. The best it can do is create a nasty stain and just ruin your day. Check out this villain for yourself in his first appearance in Birds of Prey Volume 1 number 37, or in his New 52 reintroduction in 2016's Batman Volume 3 number 9. Number 7, we have Johnny Karaoke. The crooning Yakuza loan shark is the next on our list today. Definitely not the most fearsome of Batman foes, however, this villain is way too interesting to stay buried for too long. After all, you've got to respect any American fearsome enough to rise through the ranks of the Yakuza. Although he seems like a very happy-go-lucky kind of guy, this is all an act because once you let your guard down around him, he'll whip out his cane that doubles as a microphone and a sword and do whatever he feels is necessary to protect himself and his geisha girls. Though he hasn't really made any appearances outside of his first appearance in 2007's Batman number 660, the character Jonathan John Charisma Brown from Batman Arkham Knight is heavily influenced by him and likely an homage to the smooth-talking Elvis impersonator. Like many lesser-known Batman villains, Johnny does not possess any powers other than the ability to sing pretty well, but his connection to the Yakuza combined with his own skills makes him a fairly dangerous foe. Number 6, Flamingo. Edward Flamingo, known professionally as the Assassin Flamingo, is truly ruthless, and I'm genuinely surprised he hasn't appeared in the media more. As an emotionless, unfeeling killer with the odd tendency to eat his victims' faces after he's killed them, Flamingo has proven to be a formidable foe as he is able to temporarily paralyze Damian Wayne, and would have killed him if it lasted longer, showing that he has no problem killing anyone whatsoever. He even nearly killed the Red Hood and would have gotten away with it if it weren't for the intervention of Dick Grayson, who had recently taken up the mantle of Batman after Bruce Wayne's death. As a master assassin, Flamingo has the know-how to use pretty much every firearm imaginable, and thanks to his iconic pink motorcycle, he is rarely caught. Described as an evil Zorro by his creator Grant Morrison, why not check him out for yourself in 2007's Batman number 666. Number 5. Maxi Zeus. Chronologically the fourth Batman villain to be committed to Arkham Asylum behind the Joker, Two-Face, and Rupert Thorne, Maximilian started out with pretty humble beginnings as a Greek history teacher. After his wife dies from unrevealed circumstances, Zeus loses his sanity and becomes a crime lord, using his intelligence and resources to rise to power in Gotham's underworld. Upon his very first murder though, he is thwarted by Batman and committed to Arkham Asylum, where he escaped from many times, one of which Batman actually let slide, as it was so he could go wish his daughter happy birthday. With each escape leading him to lose more and more of his sanity, Zeus eventually gets to a point where he joins forces with the Children of Ares, Deimos, Phobos, and Eris, to help merge Gotham City with Ares' throne capital, the Areopagus. Maxi is actually killed as a result of this whole plot, and his sacrifice is what brings the return of Ares, who is thankfully stopped by Wonder Woman. Funnily enough, it's actually revealed about a year later that Maxi is alive and well and running an illegal casino that eventually gets shut down thanks to a tip from the boy Wonder, and Maxi is sent back to jail without any struggle. You've probably guessed it, but this guy doesn't have any powers either. Basically, his knowledge as a history teacher and his ability to lead got him as far as possible, which is pretty impressive if you ask me. Check him out in his first appearance in 1979's Detective Comics number 483. Number 4. Dollhouse. As the daughter of Barton Mathis, known best as the Dollmaker, Matilda Mathis commits crimes and operates under the name Dollhouse. From a young age, she was taught how to hunt and slaughter people, and usually wore a doll face that was grafted over her own when committing these crimes. Forced to go into hiding after her father's business starts to go wrong after he kidnaps Batman, she is the only one of his children to actually end up resurfacing and to carry on the family business later on. Dollhouse picks up right where her father left off, taking Gotham's more misfortunate citizens and making money off of their organs through the black market. Like Dollmaker, Matilda turns the bodies into dolls, of which she actually keeps more than a few for her own dollhouse. Making her first appearance in 2011's Detective Comics Volume 2, Number 2, check out her twisted upbringing for yourself and let me know in the comments below what you think. Number 3. The Ventriloquist. Since his debut in Detective Comics number 583, 3 versions of the Ventriloquist have perplexed audiences. These versions being Arnold Wesker, Peyton Riley, and New 52's Shauna Belzer, but let's focus on Wesker as he is the best known of the 3. Because of his multiple personality disorder, Wesker uses a ventriloquist dummy to commit mob-related crimes. This doll, famously named Scarface for his Al Capone-like appearance, controls Wesker and the crime business they run. If Scarface isn't present, then Wesker projects an identity onto another inanimate object, usually sock puppets or anything else that he can use as a puppet. First appearing in 1988's Detective Comics number 583, we've seen Wesker as a member of the Secret Society of Supervillains, the Black Lantern Corps, and even the Justice League of Arkham, with all the stories and battles leading up to his tragic death in 2006's Detective Comics number 818. A year after surviving Luthor's attempt to recreate the multiverse, we see the Great White Shark burst into Wesker's apartment and kill him with a single shot to the head. Man, it's such a sad way to go for such a good villain. Number 2. Professor Pig. Laszlo Valentine, aka Professor Pig, and that's P-Y-G not P-I-G, was a former agent of Spiral driven mad by his own mind-eroding drugs, and he was an enemy of Dick Grayson and Damian Wayne during their time as Batman and Robin. Characterized as a schizophrenic, Pig's mental illness explains many of his habits, one of the most prominent being his desire to make everything perfect. Now, how does he go about accomplishing this task? Well, by unleashing Dollatrons and mind-altering substances onto Gotham City. The Dollatrons are at the center of Professor Pig's story depravity, being brainwashed people who followed his every command as though they were robots. And though they act as his loyal minions, the Dollatrons are actually very much expendable and have been replaced many times. Despite his mental illness, Valentine is still a formidable foe with a mastery of basic hand-to-hand combat and a high-level proficiency with a knife, since they were once an incredible surgeon able to perform complicated surgeries, once actually switching a hand with a foot. Making their first appearance alongside Flamingo in 2007's Batman number 666, check out their origin story for yourself or read their New 52 introduction in Batman Volume 2 number 1. And finally, number 1, the Phantasm. Created for the DC animated movie Batman: Mask of the Phantasm, Andrea Beaumont treads that line between good and evil as the vigilante, the Phantasm. Her and Bruce were university sweethearts and actually had plans to get married one day. However, her father was a rich businessman who got involved with the wrong kind of people and ended up having to go into hiding, and eventually all that got him killed. This drove Andrea to take revenge on all those who were a member of the criminal gang who killed her father, especially Jack Napier, who ended up becoming the Clown Prince of Crime. To take her revenge on Chucky Soul, Buzz Bronski, and Sal Valestra, she dons the mantle of the Phantasm, a figure that kind of resembles the Grim Reaper, complete with a scythe that she wears over her right hand. Using her father's money to hone her skills, she returns to Gotham years later to complete her goal of killing all the mob bosses. However, she does not get the chance to kill the Joker as Batman ends up intervening. Years later, she does kind of redeem herself by not killing Terry McGinnis' parents after being hired to, but after causing so much bloodshed, I really think she's more on the evil side of things. If you want to see her story for yourself, check out Batman: Mask of the Phantasm and let me know what you think.
Number 10. The Flower Cartel. This one might be lesser known as they are relatively new. Not just an enemy to Wolverine either, but an enemy to likely all of mutant kind and the mutant nation of Krakoa. The Flower Cartel are a group responsible for smuggling the Krakoan miracle flowers, which mutants use to create medicinal drugs for the world in exchange for the global acknowledgement, rights, and respect of their mutant nation. They don't just steal these flowers, but have been using them to create recreational, potent, hallucinogenic drugs. The drugs they've created are so powerful that they often cause the death of users, and may even be affiliated with mind control or possession of those exposed to the drug. We're not really sure yet. In Wolverine's newest series, he teams up with CIA agent Jeff Bannister to try and find out who exactly is behind the Flower Cartel's criminal activities. Number 9. Hobgoblin. I think we all know Hobgoblin fairly well. If you're a Spider-Man fan, that is. But did you know that he also tussled with Wolverine and the X-Men? This altercation went down in the Spider-Man animated series from the 90s, where actually Mark Hamill himself voiced Hobgoblin. We see Wolverine, the X-Men, and Spider-Man forced to deal with Hobgoblin in the season 2 episode titled Mutants Revenge, which is a crossover episode with the 90s X-Men animated series. Yay, I love crossovers. After Beast is kidnapped, the X-Men go out looking for him, which leads them to team up with Spider-Man, who is also looking for Hank. But Wolverine doesn't like Spider-Man, and while these two fight one another, Hobgoblin also sees this as a unique opportunity to attack all of the above parties, causing grief for Wolverine while he attempts to rescue Beast from Dr. Herbert Landon, who also is another random, lesser known enemy of Wolverine's in that episode anyways. Number 8. The Savage Land Mutates. When it comes to other mutant and even mutate groups outside of the X-Men, people are not always as knowledgeable. If you are just discovering mutant kind now, you may not know many other mutant groups outside of the X-Men, and there's sometimes a villainous counterpart, often led by Magneto, the Brotherhood of Mutants, or the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. But there are actually a lot more groups than just these two. There are the Morlocks, who often live in the sewers, and there are the Savage Land Mutates, who generally work with Sauron and are, you guessed it, from the Savage Lands. Mutates are like mutants, but the difference is generally that they weren't born with natural abilities which later activated, or natural mutations, but instead they evolved to become mutated, gaining powers or a physical mutation. The Savage Land Mutates are occasionally enemies of the X-Men and by extension Wolverine, who is a member of the heroic mutant team. They even pop up in the 1988 run of Wolverine in issue 69, where Wolverine knocks a lot of them down in order to get to Sauron. Number 7. The Collector. While some may now be more familiar with the character of the Collector himself, thanks to the Guardians of the Galaxy Marvel Cinematic Universe films, fans may not know that he and Wolverine actually had some pretty big beef. What happened between these two? Well, Wolverine basically freed thousands of people from a planet where the Collector had them imprisoned. You see, these people were the survivors of planets that Galactus had destroyed, whom the Collector had, well, collected. But you know, to these people, they were being held against their will, as prisoners, on a shielded planet. A character named Arya, who kind of looks like a space elf, reaches out to Wolverine, seeking his help to free these people, and he answers her plea, getting into a direct conflict with the Collector later on in this story arc known as The Great Escape, part of the 1988 Wolverine series. Basically, if you want lots of random stories, you need to read the 1988 Wolverine series. Number 6. The Iron Monk. The Iron Monk appears to be a villain sent after Wolverine by the Hand while Logan is being held in prison in issue 108 of the Wolverine series that started in 1988. He proves to be a formidable foe and gives Wolverine a pretty good fight for a few pages. I will say I did enjoy it. The Iron Monk, you see, cannot be defeated by any mortal weapon nor any mortal hand. In the end, Wolverine ends up using the Honor Sword bestowed to him by the Silver Samurai. The Honor Sword was forged out of a meteorite by a demon and seems to do the trick, causing the Iron Monk to be reduced to a wisp of pink smoke. And a robe. Number 5. Citadel. Despite the fact that Wolverine did later try to help Citadel and likely never truly saw him as an enemy, Citadel resented both Wolverine and Alpha Flight after they stopped him from achieving his goal. Citadel was one of the antagonists in issue 5 of Wolverine First Class, where Citadel was also known then as Weapon Y. Wolverine suspected he was also made by the same people who had put adamantium inside of him, as Citadel had adamantium skin or an adamantium exoskeleton externally instead of internally. Citadel was a soldier who was injured in action and ended up being experimented on instead of being properly treated. He wanted the government to be held accountable and was holding government officials hostage in Quebec, Canada. Wolverine's mission was to deal with the situation, extract the superhuman threat, and secure the hostages. He didn't know that Citadel himself was also a potential victim until it was too late, and the government stepped in to cart Citadel off without Wolverine being able to do or say much about it. Number 4. Abdul Al-Hazarad. Fun fact, did you know that Abdul Al-Hazarad in H.P. Lovecraft lore is the character credited with the creation of the Necronomicon? Yeah, he is, and as such, he is also acknowledged as being its creator in the Marvel universe as well. He and Wolverine came to blows in Madripoor when Abdul was trying to take over Tiger's crime syndicate. Abdul attempted to attack Wolverine with a demon, but in the end, Wolverine survived, and Abdul ended up trapped in the same demonic realm his demon pals had come from. Sucks to suck, I guess. Number 3. Damage. For those who are unfamiliar with Damage, he's basically Marvel's version of the Terminator. There's a lot of parallels there anyways. He was originally the human Jamie Ortiz. The Kingpin turned him into a cybernetic being after Damage was brought to the brink of death by Punisher. Kingpin later gave Damage cosmetic surgery to make him look identical to the Punisher as well, and used him against Frank Castle, attempting to break Castle and ruin the Punisher's name by having Damage kill a bunch of innocent people. Wolverine and Damage both ripped one another apart in a fight, and when Punisher finally showed up, he finished Damage off by setting him on fire. Number 2. Geist. Nikolaus Geist was a mad scientist from Germany working on the side of the Axis during World War II. He was working to create a new type of super soldier for Germany, similar to the United States super soldier Captain America, aka Steve Rogers. Roughhouse was his main test subject, and in the end, Wolverine was the one to free Roughhouse and put a stop to Geist. Geist was also a cyborg, but Wolverine cut off his metal shell in an attempt to kill him. It was later revealed that while he was suspected dead and was incapacitated after this fight, he did however manage to survive. However, soon after, another mutant, Magneto, did kill him, so he dead. Number 1. Roughhouse. Going back again to the days of battle in Madripoor for who would get to be the king or queen of crime, and in effect rule Madripoor, Wolverine found himself allied with Yasan Hoan, aka Tiger. It was also during this time that he first fought with Roughhouse, who made his first appearance in issue 4 of Wolverine's series from 1988. Roughhouse was allied with General Koi, and got his superpowers from either his relation to the mythical race of Asgardians, or from being a mutant, or maybe a bit of both. It's a little foggy. Though they are enemies and remained enemies thereafter, Wolverine did still save Roughhouse from Geist, because experimenting on people in Logan's book is just plain wrong. And I think in everyone's book, let's not experiment on people. Can we all agree on that?
Number 10. Nuclear Man. Regarded by many as one of the strangest and most half-baked Superman villains to date, Nuclear Man hasn't had too many appearances outside of his introduction in 1987 Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. He was created by Lex Luthor from a strand of hair containing Superman's DNA, which he threw into a genetic stew. Superman is actually the one responsible for this villain's birth though, as he wasn't fully born until Superman threw the nuclear missile containing the device that had the stew in it into the sun. Having been created using Kryptonian DNA, he possesses powers similar to Superman, such as invulnerability, energy projection, flight, and of course the standard super strength and speed. However, Nuclear Man needs to have constant exposure to sunlight in order to use them. If he's left out of the sun for too long, he becomes completely immobilized and must wait for some more sunlight in order to recharge. In the movie, Superman stopped Nuclear Man for good by causing a sudden solar eclipse when he moved the moon in front of the sun, then dropped him into the heart of a nuclear reactor where he could become an abundant source of energy for the remainder of his days. Now, like I said before, Nuclear Man hasn't made too many appearances outside of Superman 4, but if you want to see him in comic book form, check him out in his one-off appearance in 2018 Superman Volume 5, Number 2. Number 9. Microwave Man. Louis Paget from Earth 1, known as the costume baddie Microwave Man, has a pretty interesting story despite only appearing in 2 issues back in 1978. Paget spent 40 years traveling around the galaxy aboard an alien spacecraft before returning back to Earth in October of 1978. Now, not much is known about his life before his interstellar journey other than the fact that he was already known as the villain Microwave Man. Upon his return, Paget calls upon his alien friends one last time to grant him back his youth, even though doing this would shorten his remaining life to only a few more hours. This didn't seem to bother him, and once he was young again, Paget assumed the identity of Microwave Man once more and challenged Superman. Now, Paget's alien friends inform Superman that he only wants the glory of defeating him and will die very soon, so Superman, like the upstanding good guy that he is, allows Paget to defeat him in a test of strength, after which he dies satisfied, and the aliens come to claim his body to set adrift in space as he had once requested. Making his first appearance in 1978's Action Comics number 487, why not check his short run out for yourself? Number 8. The Puzzler. So little is known about either version of the Puzzler, so don't feel bad if you're not familiar with this character or just generally don't know who they are. The first to take up this name was Valerie Van Haften, a longtime admirer of Superman and someone who wanted nothing more than to get his attention, so she had the idea of becoming a heroine with the intent of one day joining his team. This proved to be a lot harder than she thought, and she quickly turned to crime instead and eventually joined the likes of the Secret Six to get a Get Out of Hell free card. Her powers are actually pretty cool as she's made up of a bunch of indestructible puzzle pieces that she has full control over, allowing her to deconstruct at will and even fling the pieces at her opponents like a bullet. Now, the second puzzler is from the Prime Earth and is actually known as Puzzler Bot, a creation of that universe's puzzler that mimics the abilities of its creator through technological assimilation. That's about it when it comes to these characters, so if you know any more, please let me know in the comments below, but in the meantime, check them out for yourself in 2002's Superman Volume 2 number 187 and 2013's Justice League of America Volume 3 number 3. Number 7. Bloodsport. Now, unfortunately, a cool name doesn't always make for a cool villain. We've seen a few of Lex Luthor's henchmen take up the name Bloodsport, but let's focus on the first, Robert Dubois. Dubois suffered a mental breakdown after his brother had taken his place in the Vietnam War and became a quadruple amputee, resulting in Dubois spending 12 years bouncing between various psychiatric hospitals. Somehow, an agent of Lex Luthor persuades Dubois that Superman is to blame for all his troubles, causing him to adopt the name Bloodsport and go on a needless rampage in downtown Metropolis. Equipped with basic hand-to-hand combat skills and some unnamed tech from Luthor that allowed him to summon any weapon he desired from a remote location, Dubois caused some serious damage before being subdued after his brother confronted him. He spent several years in Stryker Island's penitentiary before Alex Trent, the person who took up the name Bloodsport after him, was brought to his attention. Believing it was the healthiest way for the two to work out their problems, the warden set up a boxing match between the two with Superman as the referee. However, things got out of hand pretty quickly and a riot broke out that allowed Dubois to escape. His freedom didn't last very long though, as he was quickly shot down by a prison guard. Check out his story for yourself, starting with 1987 Superman Volume 2, Number 4. Number 6. Bruno Mannheim. Bruno Ugly Mannheim had the honor, or I don't know, maybe dishonor depending on how you look at it, of being introduced not in a Superman comic, but in the spin-off series Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen. Mannheim starts off as a pretty run-of-the-mill stereotypical gangster, trying to just stake a claim for himself in Metropolis, but eventually morphs into something very different and ultimately confusing. With no real powers unless you consider greed and brutality to be special, Mannheim was beefed up by DC when he was made leader of the Intergang, a worldwide crime syndicate that answers to no one other than Darkseid. Basically, Mannheim is this interesting amalgamation of some of the best villains out there, as he is known to go full-blown Hannibal Lecter sometimes, eating his enemies / subordinates that disobey him, and he also flip-flops between being a super genius like Lex Luthor to an overwhelming powerhouse like Darkseid. Yeah, I know, it's all a little bit confusing, so why not check him out for yourself so you can make some more sense of his character, starting with his first appearance in 1971's Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, number 139. Number 5. The Prankster. Once the extremely popular host of the Uncle Oswald show, Oswald Loomis became the prankster after his show was cancelled and ultimately ended his career in comedy. His first assault on Metropolis was an all-out barrage of practical jokes that ended in his surrender. After a while, Loomis resurfaced with a much younger and athletic body thanks to selling his soul to Lord Satanus, and this changed everything. With a more serious personality and affinity for dangerous tricks, Loomis basically became a slightly less twisted version of the Joker, and his only goal was to make the world laugh via his own twisted ways. When Metropolis was taken over by Brainiac 13, he took advantage of all the futuristic tech available and upgraded his existing gadgets, which proved to be pretty effective against even the likes of Superman. However, this was probably because the Man of Steel was suffering from kryptonite poisoning at the time and did not have full access to his powers. Skip ahead a little bit to when the Joker took over the world, and we meet a slightly altered Halloween mask wearing prankster who acts as Joker City's exorcist, whose goal is to expel the evil from those who still believe in science. Thankfully for everyone out there, he was eventually apprehended by Superman and taken to Belle Reve to serve his time for all his crimes. Having made his first appearance all the way back in 1988's Superman Volume 2 number 16, give his story a read for yourself and let me know what you think in the comments below. Number 4. Lois Lane Robot. On New Earth and during his quest for the power he lost in Blackest Night, Lex Luthor decided it was a good idea to take a Brainiac probe stored in LexCorp and a sample of Lois Lane's DNA to create a robotic version of her that would serve as his quote-unquote conscience. Unfortunately for him, before he was able to complete the programming, he was held hostage by some bandits under the control of Mr. Mind, and he himself was put into a mental illusion. The Lois Lane robot was functional enough though to activate all of its weapon systems, allowing it to take out all of the thugs and bring Luthor back into reality. Armed to the brim with state-of-the-art technology and weapons, her robotic android body allows her to repair any damage received, and also gives her the ability to fly alongside super strength, durability, and speed. Now, not long after their run-in with Mr. Mind, Luthor, Deathstroke, and Lanebot head to Antarctica to find a black orb that is somehow related to the Black Power Ring energy. The effects of this orb were enough to cause Deathstroke and his men to completely lose control and attack one another. However, Lanebot was not affected as she is inorganic. That was the last time we saw the Lois Lane robot, so until they grace the comic book pages once again, check them out in their first appearance in 2010's Action Comics number 890. Number 3. Terra Man. Tobias Manning, aka Terra Man, was once a businessman who one day realized just how much damage he was causing to the Earth and its environment. With his newfound conscience, Manning took up a personal vendetta against any company that was causing damage to the environment. Using weapons that focused on turning the environment around his enemies against them, he has caused some serious damage in the name of the Earth, and that earned him a spot on the Secret Society of Villains during the events of Infinite Crisis. Even after this catastrophic event, Terra Man continued his nefarious ways by hijacking a plane over the Middle East. Thanks to Black Adam, he escaped both harm and capture for this crime. However, in hindsight, teaming up with Black Adam probably wasn't the best idea for him, because when Black Adam later appeared to address the media in front of Kahndaq's New York embassy, he ripped Terra Man in half with no warning, and that was the end of this nature-loving villain until he was resurrected during the events of the Blackest Night. Why not give his story a read for yourself, starting with his first appearance all the way back in 1990's Superman Volume 2, number 46. Number 2. Hellspawn. Although he was originally created as the nemesis of the Wildcats in the Wildstorm universe, Hellspawn made his way onto the villain roster for Superman when that universe was brought into the DC universe in the New 52 relaunch. As a Daemonite, Hellspawn possesses a ridiculous amount of powers thanks to his alien physiology, such as, but definitely not limited to, chronokinesis, accelerated healing, and telepathy, and when combined with his Akurian host body, he is shown to possess super strength and speed that are able to outmatch even the Man of Steel himself. Hellspawn made his first documented move against humanity by trying to start a nuclear war between the most powerful nations on Earth in order to allow humanity to destroy itself so the planet would be empty for the Daemonites. However, this plan didn't really pan out as he was stopped by Team 1 and Mr. Majestic. In the rebooted Wildstorm universe, Hellspawn is now a super evolved living hive mind because apparently when the number of Daemonites reaches a certain number, a central mind is created. Hellspawn now has the knowledge and intelligence of every member of the entire Daemonite race, and its synthetic body is a rad looking mix of flesh, metal, and fire. Thanks to this, he has moved into a league of his own when it comes to power. However, we are still waiting to see it all in action. Now, I did have to skip over a lot of cool stuff regarding this character, so check out his story for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1992's Wildcats number 1. And coming in at number 1, we have Conduit. Kenny Braverman was, funnily enough, born on the same day that Superman's ship arrived on Earth. His fate was not exactly as lucky as our Man of Steel's. While his parents were on the way to the hospital, they ended up having to pull over to the side of the road due to the heavy storm, and he was born curbside, incredibly close to Clark's ship, and the exposure to the kryptonite caused some side effects that would manifest later in life. All throughout their younger years, Clark and Kenny were rivals, competing in everything from sports to girls, and this probably caused some serious self-esteem issues for Kenny because Clark always seemed to come out on top. After high school, Kenny went on to join the CIA and grew more and more reckless as his dormant abilities started to change his personality. Turns out Kenny's body is basically a living conduit for all energy, and it can process, manipulate, and even generate forms of energy in many destructive ways. Upon realizing this, Kenny took up the mantle of conduit and decided it was finally time to get his revenge on Clark. However, all of his attempts seemed to fail. Later confronted by Superman, Kenny deduced that Clark and the Man of Steel were one and the same, which was perfect for him because they were literally the only people he wanted to kill. So, he set all his sights on getting rid of Superman. Kenny manages to catch Superman and traps him in a mock version of Smallville, and the two face off one-on-one in a replica of their childhood football stadium. Unfortunately for Kenny, he succumbed to his madness and supercharged himself with kryptonite energy, effectively overloading his powers and killing him in the process. Why not give Conduit's story a read for yourself, starting with his first appearance all the way back in 1994's Superman, The Man of Steel #0, and let me know what you think in the comments below.
Kicking off the list at number 10, we have the Orb. He made his first appearance in Ghost Rider Volume 6, Issue 26. The Orb is, well, yeah, he's a guy with an eyeball for a head. Cool. That's a notable feature, I'd say. Well, he was born like that. His parents abandoned him at an early age because of it. Sad stuff. Now, the eye can do much more than freak people out and make squishy noises. The eye can blast people with a red energy beam, and he can walk on walls, so it's only fair that he's crossed paths with Spider-Man and Wolverine during this weird life. In Astonishing Spider-Man and Wolverine, the Orb has backup. He's got a group of robbers called Orblings, which I gotta say, it's a great name for a group. They're trying to get their hands on these rare jewels locked away in a bank. And as they're fighting each other, the three of them get transported across the timeline thanks to those, well, time diamonds. As if fighting an eyeball wasn't weird enough, this alternate timeline made the Orb even bigger and more powerful. He was well equipped to take on Peter and Logan. Number 9, the Iron Monk. Appearing only in Wolverine Volume 2, Issue 108, the Iron Monk was an assassin sent by the Hand to take down Wolverine and Pale Flower. This happened right after the two interrupted the group's plans in Japan, so the Tokyo Metropolitan Police had them locked up. So all of a sudden, the Iron Monk teleports into these holding cells, attacks all the guards, rips off the door to Logan's holding cell, and this guy was laughing at Wolverine and Pale Flower when they were trying to attack. It was useless to try and attack this guy. Nothing was working against the Iron Monk's durability. That was his main thing. And then all of a sudden, Yohei appeared and gave Wolverine the honor sword of the clan Yoshida, a sword that was forged from meteorite iron by a demon. Yeah, sounds like it's gonna do the trick. And before we continue on with this epic part 2, if you wanna go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, honestly, it really helps our channel a lot. All you gotta do is go, and then that's it. Then we can bring you more content, you look brighter, maybe I'll get a haircut, who knows? Good things will happen if you click like, basically, or subscribe. Oh my god, if you hit subscribe. Number 8, Tiger Shark. Not a tiger shark, but Tiger Shark. Meet Todd Arliss. He made his first appearance in Submariner issue 5. He was once a talented swimmer who took part in the Olympic Games, but after damaging his spinal cord saving a man, Todd was desperate to get back into the water. So he participated in an experiment performed by Dr. Lemuel Dorcas. He's a dork, sorry, I had to. That's where he had his DNA merged with Namor and a tiger shark, so obviously now we have a new supervillain. His personality changed as well as his abilities. He was initially a foe of Namor, of course, but in Wolverine Volume 2, Issue 19, Logan got a little wet and wild himself. Fighting underwater, turns out, was much harder. Wolverine gets his claws literally stuck in a reef at one point. Honestly, I felt like I was drowning while reading these 2 issues. A little stressful. Number 7, Spiral. Ricochet Rita was once a professional stunt performer. She became friends with a guy named Longshot who was actually from, well, not Earth, he was from Mojoverse. She was then attacked by this insane future version of herself named Spiral. Now thankfully she was able to defeat Spiral, but after that she followed her heart. She went back to the dimension with Longshot. She went back to the Mojoverse. And then when they got there, they were both captured by Mojo himself. And Longshot's mind was wiped. He forgot Rita entirely. And as for Rita, well, things get actually a lot worse and more confusing. Mojo got his scientist Ares to modify her mentally and physically, so now she's got 6 arms, he turned her hair gray, and she could also see other dimensions, so a bit of an upgrade, that's cool. She was a twisted version of Mojo in a way, and she was trained in the dark arts of magic and body modification. So this future version of her was, well, it was just that. It was a dark future of what ended up happening. Nice little time loop there. Spiral also appears in the X-Men animated series, and she makes Wolverine's life hell in Volume 2, Issue 51. I'd love to see Spiral fight 6-armed Spider-Man. I wonder who would win that one. Number 6, Deathbird. Making her first appearance in Miss Marvel issue 9, Kelsey Naramani was born the eldest child of the Magister Naramani. She was born heir of the Shi'ar Empire's throne. What luck. Must be nice. She was born with bird-like features. She was born with uncontrollable rage, and she's even got a set of claws as well. Deathbird was once recruited to serve Apocalypse as the Horseman War. She's mainly an X-Men villain, but with such similar features, I figured this list and this part 2 would be a great time to bring her name up because she's a total badass. Number 5, Deathwatch. First entering comics in Ghost Rider Volume 3, Issue 1, Deathwatch is a demon. How fun is that? But he poses as a crime boss named Stephen Lawrence, so okay, not totally a demon. One of his first things that he did actually was order his Death Spawn ninjas to steal a large amount of biotoxin and attack New York. So right off the bat, he is a horrible villain. He gets his energy from pain and death, and he can connect to you mentally with just one touch. So you don't want to be anywhere near him. Doesn't feel too good. During Marvel Comics Presents issue 71, he got himself on Logan's death list, right after Wolverine bumped into his men in Madripoor. He carries a katana with him and firearms, and if there's one guy to absorb pain and death from, well, Wolverine's got quite a bit to give. Number 4, Doombringer. Also known as the Walker Between Worlds, Doombringer appeared once and only once, despite his menacing name. Wolverine's Doombringer was released back in 1997. It's a story told from the Madripoor years where Logan is uncovering the mystery of an ancient Japanese tale about the Doombringer, which was currently on its way to destroy us all. Lovely. The story puts Wolverine and the Silver Samurai against a 5-alarm freak from hell, as Logan puts it. Now the fight itself is just a mess. It's just guts and blood everywhere. Even Wolverine thinks, okay, the only way I can win here is just survive. Just give the most amount of blood and then we're good. And that's basically how it ends. The Doombringer is massive, it's scaly, it has sharp claws. It's definitely not one of Wolverine's easy days, that's for sure. Number 3, Mr. X. Making his first appearance in Wolverine Volume 2, Issue 159, Mr. X is the only name given about this guy, and he was kind of obsessed with death growing up. He saw a woman get hit by a car at a young age, and then trauma ensued. And then at the same time, it unlocked his mutant ability, being that of telepathy. He trained in combat with numerous teachers, where he would get so good that he would then just take them out afterwards. He would learn from them and then kill them. Guy's ruthless. He was obsessed with violence, so when he heard about Wolverine, he was like, oh, I have to fight this guy, let's do it. Mr. X wanted to be the best, and he did beat Logan in their first encounter. Later on, however, in issue 168 during the annual Bloodsport tournament in Madripoor, Mr. X was beating everybody along the way. He even beat Taskmaster at some point. How crazy is that? That telepathy sure does come in handy. He knew which hits were coming and when. Pretty unfair, but also pretty cool, I have to admit. Number 2, the Mongrels. Wolverine hooks up with many women over his long lifespan. I don't know how to put it lightly, but yeah, he has a lot of kids that run around. Sometimes those kids grow up and seek revenge on their mutant father, and the Mongrels are just that. The Mongrels are Logan's kids that grew up to become Shadowstalker, Fire Knives, Soft Fist, Gunhawk, and Cannonfoot. Okay, pretty sweet names. Pretty to the point names. They first appeared in Wolverine Volume 4, Issue 1. Their only goal was to ruin Logan's life. That's it. Just cause pain and suffering. So they joined the Red Right Hand, where they were trained to be used as literal weapons, hence those fun names. And then in Wolverine Volume 4, Issue 4, Gunhawk burned down a room filled with Wolverine's mementos and prized possessions over his long life. All this happened while Logan was literally in hell. So while he was down there melting, they were burning his stuff both on Earth as well. It's a lot of fire. Once Logan did get out of hell, 9 issues later, he invaded the Red Right Hand's base where the Mongrels then attacked him. They didn't make it too far, but Logan did give them a chance to surrender peacefully, so you gotta give him that. Not bad for a guy who just escaped hell. We actually just did a list on our top 10 superheroes who beat the devil, so if this kind of stuff intrigues you, be sure to check that out once you're done here. And finally, number 1, Deadpool. Wolverine villains you won't believe exist? Well, okay, here's one for you. Before all those box office records, Ryan Reynolds played the Merc, well, without a mouth, back in 2009. X-Men Origins Wolverine was a train wreck. It was a horrible take on Wade Wilson. The film was made during the 2007 writer's strike, so it was just a mess from the get-go. I feel like now we can rip this movie apart because, you know, it's in the past. Logan's good, he had his great ending. Deadpool's now in the MCU after 2 successful R-rated movies, so he's good. It's cool. We can make fun of it now. At the beginning of this movie, it's kind of close. I mean, Wade is quick with the quips, and the action, although it's aged and cheesy, is still at least entertaining. That is until later on in the movie when he returns for a big showdown with Wolverine, and it's just not the guy we want. His mouth is sewn shut, it's not even close. Not the guy, just not the guy.
You guys, if you can take
Okay?
6
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy. Okay? Okay?
You?
Absolutely.
You're gonna get arrested for this?
Arrested for doing what?
Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Dirtnap. No real name also, just goes by Dirtnap. So sick. Making his first few little steps in Wolverine Volume 2, issue 95, Dirtnap is a mutant that can absorb living beings and take their forms. The Kirby of the Marvel Universe, essentially. Now, he ran into Wolverine for the first time when Dirtnap absorbed a small child, and then right after he attempted to absorb Wolverine, seeing as Logan's healing factor would make that pretty exhausting, Dirtnap absorbed a rat, and then he fled the scene, instead of, absorbing a faster creature. Maybe one that could fly would be nice. So he started off as a mutant with his amazing ability, and now he's forever a rat like Peter Pettigrew. A rat with a red smiley face. Just, how comforting is that? Number 9, Roughhouse. Just that name alone, you know you're in for a little bit of trouble. He first appeared in Wolverine Volume 2, Issue 4. It was speculated that Roughhouse was from Asgard. He has mythological origins, but still he was classified as a mutant. He's a descendant from the Asgardian native rock trolls, so he could be a god, he could be a troll, he could be a giant, who knows. Either way, he's trouble. His appearance isn't just a style choice also. He actually let the hair grow out to hide all the scars from his horrible father that he'd left behind. In Wolverine Volume 2, Issue 18, Wolverine had to go head-to-head with the mythical man, and at this point, Geist's men gave Roadhouse experimental narcotics, and it just drove him insane, as most experimental narcotics do. So when Wolverine fought him, he was kind of taking it easy on him in a way, seeing as he was out of it, he was kind of loopy. Wolverine came face to face with Roughhouse after the adamantium was stripped from his skeleton, and Logan actually lost this fight. He got knocked out, and then Roughhouse took him back to his hideout, where he and Bloodscream tortured Wolverine for days. He's an Asgardian descendant, so Roughhouse has super speed, super strength, all the usual super stuff, but like Logan, Roughhouse too inherited the healing factor. He's been referred to as the weaker Wolverine despite his mythical background. Number 8, Bloodscream. Another villain that helped Roughhouse with the torture of Wolverine was Bloodscream. These names are so violent, oh my god. So Bloodscream entered comics in issue 4 of Wolverine Volume 2. He was originally a surgeon named Zachariah Ravenscraft, and he would travel with Sir Francis Drake back in the 17th century. So he's a little bit old. What's his secret to everlasting life? Well, let me tell you. Canadian natives injured the doctor during a scuffle, and then he was forced to meet a healer named Dagu to treat him. Dagu used an eldritch spell to keep him in between life and death, resulting in this vampire hybrid of a man. Now the name Bloodscream is making more sense now, I bet. Immortal and always hungry, Bloodscream demands Dagu to set him back to doctor mode. Reverse this curse, please and thank you, sir. Now in order to do so, he needed the blood of another immortal. Bloodscream met Wolverine for the first time in World War II, and that's when he first thought that the mutant was immortal. So him and Roughhouse often paired up to attempt to take him down numerous times. Number 7, Cyber. Silas Burr made his first appearance in Marvel Comics Presents issue 85. He was born in Canada over 100 years ago. They're all so old. What's going on? He was an agent for the Pinkerton National Detective Agency in 1912, but was charged with 22 counts of murder and put on trial in Iowa. Not a great guy. And yes, he was guilty on all of those charges. He was about to be hanged, but Victor Creed, aka Sabretooth, was posing as a guard and helped Burr escape. After that, Burr was taken to the Canadian Army's training facility where he met Frederick Hudson, who was impressed by Burr because of how pushy and controlling he was for the men below him. So Hudson put Burr in command of the Devil's Brigade, which included Logan. So he was bossing Logan around. He was the one who pushed Logan non-stop to be made into this animal. So in Wolverine Origins, Romulus decided to give Burr a little upgrade in the form of adamantium, taking on this new fitting alias, Cyber. Number 6, Dr. Rot. Nice. That name is pretty disgusting right off the top. Now his real name is a little more tame. His name's Algernon Rotwell. He was sent to Dunwich Sanatorium because he was mad, but he wasn't superpowered by any means, just a little bit insane. While he was in there, he was able to start a riot and take control, which led him to harvesting the employees' brains, so he made this god brain machine, and yes, it's as gross as you would imagine. Check it out. Squishy. Imagine the smell. So he captured Logan, made him lose his memory, tortured him, and then claimed the only way to get better is just to embrace and let go of all that anger and aggression. Just let it out. They wanted him to let it out and to hurt people. So he found out these code phrases that were put in from Weapon X, so he made Logan do all these brutal attacks, and he wasn't even sure if he was awake or not. It was wild. It was a bad time. Dr. Rot was honestly pretty badass for a guy who has no powers. He created the flesh puppets using Logan's brain tissue. Also, yeah, flesh puppets. That's a nice way to say zombies. Number 5, Charlie Chainsaw. This guy is literally 2 chains. Whenever I see that one card from Cards Against Humanity, the one that says chainsaws for hands, I always laugh because that's such a terrible situation to be in. I'm always like, imagine this dude, imagine him as a villain, we'd be doomed. Well, lo and behold, he's a villain, and we're doomed. He first appeared in Wolverine Weapon X issue 7. He was the guy wandering around without hands, actually, at this point. The staff was following him in the hallways, asking for Charlie to come back. He was like, what do? I don't have hands, I can't open doors, help. And then 6 pages later, the surgery is complete. Charlie Chainsaw is born. Charlie remained loyal to Rotwell until Logan ripped through those chainsaws. And that sounds like a pretty stressful life. He's for sure a chain smoker. Number 4, Spore. Making his first appearance in Wolverine Volume 2, Issue 21, Spore is a living bioweapon created from the Deviants. This was way back when they were at war with the Eternals in the prehistoric era. So Spore consumed everything in its path, be it humans, deviants, and even Eternals. He targeted the Celestials, so they naturally had to destroy him during the second host. But in the next issue, Spore came back to life. Turns out when he was liquefied, he was absorbed into all that soil underneath him. So when that land became a controlled area for Felix Guillermo Caridad to grow his stuff, his bad stuff that I can't say, some of those narcotics that he was using was infused with Spore. So Felix became the next Spore, and it's an awful, awful conundrum. Number 3, Gorgon. Tommy Shishido made his first appearance in Wolverine Volume 3, Issue 20, and from birth, Tommy was a fast learner. At just 2 weeks old, he spoke a full sentence, and at 3 months old, he was walking around on his own. At age 1, reading and writing was part of his normal day, and at age 4, he was ranked one of the top 5 artists in modern Japan. And then come birthday number 13, he discovered he was a mutant. He had low-level telepathy, he could read minds from a short distance, but you don't want to have a staring contest with him at all, because if he locks eyes with you, you'll literally turn into stone. He remained blindfolded, relying on his telepathic abilities to carry him in battle, and it worked. He was actually pretty sick. The media dubbed him as the Gorgon, like the Medusa of our time. He found the Hand Sanctuary and within a year became their high priest, where he ran the ninja clan. Number 2, Razor Fist. After getting his arms cut off, master martial artist Douglas Scott got a pretty shiny upgrade instead of those hands. He worked alongside his brother William Scott, and after Shang-Chi defeated both the mercenaries, Razor Fist started to work with the crime lord Roche in Madripoor. His job was to assassinate Wolverine, which, okay, easy peasy, sure, sounds great. Now the first fight, Wolverine actually did lose. Razor Fist shucked him off of a cliff. Nice. Now the next encounter, Razor Fist got what was coming. He tried to take on Hawkeye as well at one point. He was trying to cut off his right arm for a reward. But Razor Fist isn't superpowered. He's just a guy with blades for hands. I mean, who would you rather fight, honestly? Razor Fist or Chainsaw Charlie? I feel like Charlie would be better because you'd hear him. He's loud at least, so you have like a warning. I don't know. Both are pretty terrifying. Both are equally as terrifying. And finally, number 1, Romulus. That guy I mentioned earlier in this list. Let's talk about him. He made his first appearance in Wolverine Volume 3, Issue 55. Romulus claims to have been born in prehistoric times, born as one of the Lupine, these feral humans that evolved from canines rather than apes. But in Wolverine Volume 2, Issue 312, it's exposed that his origins are all just a fib, and the bones that Romulus planted at the elephant graveyard were just distractions. Nothing to do with his past or anything like that. He does have powers. Like Wolverine, his regenerative healing factor saves the day pretty often. Later on, he comes to fight Wolverine equipped. He has these black gloves that have 4 blades attached. 3 of them similar to Logan's adamantium claws, but he also has a 4th one and it's like thumbs almost. They can take quite the beating from Logan's claws being adamantium as well. But when it comes to thumb wars, Romulus wins. That's it. He's got the other one. He can thumb war anyone.